Hey everybody, welcome to day 37, where we are going to be talking about how to write good dialogue in our stories. So, if you haven't hit that subscribe button below, go ahead and click it now, and then whatever it is you're drinking today, grab a cup, cozy up, and let's get to writing. Today we are talking all about dialogue, and one of the first things I want to say is that written speech is very different from how we actually speak in real life. The way that we really speak, if we transcribed it and tried to put it into our books, would be absolutely terrible. Oh hey, how are you? Oh, I'm good. How are you? Oh, doing really well. We're loving this sunshine. That's great. How are the kids doing? Boring. Talk about snoozeville. Nobody wants to read that. So the pleasantries that we exchange in real life, the uhs and the ums, there are so many things that we actually say in real speech that really just need to be cut out when we're doing our dialogue. One of the things you need to keep in mind is that everything you write needs to move your plot forward, and that includes dialogue too. So don't have engineer brain about this. Don't think that just because in real life we would exchange those pleasantries and we would say all the boring bits, that means you have to put them in your story too. You do not. They do not have to be included. So if the goal of the scene is that one of your characters is going to find out that the other character's on their way to the castle, instead of stopping and having them exchange their pleasantries and talk about the weather first, which is probably how the conversation would go in real life, have them like collide. Have something happen where they go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And the other one says, oh no, it's okay. I was just on my way up to the castle. Instead of exchanging all the boring pleasantries, we just got the same point across, but in a much more interesting way. So just remember that dialogue is a tool that moves your story forward. It moves your plot forward, or at least one of your subplots in some way. And I'm also going to give you 5 tips on what you can do to make your dialogue sound very good and natural and something that your readers will enjoy reading. So my first tip is to not be too literal with your dialogue. So your characters should not just come out and say what they're feeling and say what they're thinking, unless you're like writing a musical, because then a lot of times characters will sing about their feelings. But in a novel, when we're trying to explain real ways that people communicate with each other, it's not usually so literal or so straightforward. If someone's going to ask how your character's doing, your character's probably not going to say, I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling sad. They're not going to come right out and say what they are feeling. A lot of times they'll dance around the subject and they'll say, oh, I'm fine. And we have to read their body language and the tone of their voice to really understand what it is that they're really feeling. And that brings us to tip number 2, which is to add lots of expression, add lots of inflection to their tone. So we know as we listen to how they're talking, we know what they're feeling and we know what's going through their head. Also add lots of body language, lots of cues where they're kind of moving around. Either they're fidgety and anxious, or maybe they're angry and their fists are balled up in rage. There should be a lot of these context clues that lead us to understand how our characters are really feeling instead of them saying it literally. And my number 3 recommendation would be that I always recommend that characters are doing something else at the time that they're having this dialogue. It's very, very hard to write a scene where 2 characters are just sitting in chairs talking to one another. I always think that you should have something else going on. So either they're working on a project, or they're walking somewhere and having to hop over obstacles along the way, or something else is going on at the same time, because it's really boring to read a scene where they're just sitting or just standing and then just talking to each other. It's a lot easier to make it move smoothly and feel natural if they're doing something else at the same time. And honestly, it doesn't have to be that they're working on some grand project. It could just be that they're drinking tea at the same time as they're talking. I mean, you know, in between when they're talking. So they set the teacup down and then they pick it up to take a sip. And then as they get angry, they can kind of tighten their grip on that teacup. Or if they're feeling overjoyed, maybe they spill a little bit. It just kind of gives some extra momentum to the scene when there's other things that you can play with other than just the words coming out of their mouths. And then tip number 4 is that all of the dialogue that's going on is usually going to be between multiple characters, right? Unless one character is talking to a literal wall. So what you should add is some sort of character relationship into every bit of dialogue that they have. So if they're close friends, show that by having them throw some little jabs and jokes in while they're talking. Or if they're enemies, have it be really argumentative and very confrontational. Every bit of dialogue should show the relationships that the characters have with each other, because this is an amazing tool where we can use show instead of tell. Instead of telling what kind of relationships the characters have, we show it through that dialogue. So if we have dialogue between 2 characters and we don't don't show the relationships, we are truly missing just a gem of an opportunity where we could have shown what they mean to each other. And then tip 5 is really along the same lines of using that dialogue to show the characters' personalities. So are they mean and argumentative? You can really show that through their dialogue and through their body language while they're speaking. Are they kind and really understanding? Are they funny and flirty and really fun to read about? Or are they really serious and down to business? Having that in all of your dialogue can really show who your characters are, and that's another way of showing and not telling. So it's a loss if we don't take advantage of it. And then lastly, what I would say to keep in mind is that dialogue is one of those things that just gets better as you do it more. So the practice makes perfect with this. If you're not feeling like it's reading naturally, just keep trying, just keep writing scenes. And something to keep in mind is that if you don't feel like your dialogue is flowing perfectly right now, it's really a matter of practice makes perfect. Just keep working on it, just keep writing scenes, and as you go and as you incorporate these tips, your dialogue will get better. It's just a matter of being consistent with it and writing all the time. And of course, with today being day 37, we are still working on our word count, trying to hit 1,667 words each day. It looks like our goal yesterday should have been to hit 10,002. I wrote 2,317 words yesterday, which put me at a total of 13,366. So I'm still staying ahead of the curve, which makes me really happy because ahead is a good place to be. So have fun with your word count today. These are my tips about dialogue, so go ahead and incorporate them where you can, but just focus on getting the words onto the paper and hitting that 50,000 word count this month. If you haven't hit that subscribe button below, go ahead and click it now, and I will see you guys tomorrow for day 38 of the 60-day novel writing challenge.